Hello, my name is Gina Ramos. This is PE 589, Physical Education and Exercise Science Capstone with Dr. Andrew Allstott, Fall 2019. The topic of my capstone is screen time and physical activity. The purpose of this study was for me to investigate the connection between the amount of time spent on screen time activities and the time spent doing physical activity in adolescence. The reason why I chose this topic is because the advancement of technology is becoming more available to society, not only adults, but to adolescents, specifically middle schoolers between the ages of 10 and 13. They are gaining more access to screen-based activities, and so this is not only available to them at school, but it's also becoming more accessible at home or outside of school hours. If there's a way we can incorporate technology into physical activity, then we should see an increase in time spent on physical activity. The central research questions the study examined were as follows. What was the relationship between adolescent students' physical activity and their screen time, and what was the difference in screen time in students who have a higher level of physical activity versus those are the ones that have lower amounts of physical activity. So prior research has mainly focused on sedentary behaviors and health. So they're showing that the more time a child spends doing sedentary behaviors, watching television, sitting on a computer, listening to music, reading, on social media, on their cell phones, it's resulting in a higher risk factor of childhood obesity, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. It's showing that they are spending less time being physically active and more time on those sedentary behaviors. It's because of the advancement that technology is taking and the amount of applications that are coming out for children to focus their free time on allows them self-entertainment versus having to have someone else to play with outdoors, to be a part of a sports team. It allows them to give time to themselves. Another thing with that, however, being said, is that with the higher amount of sedentary activities being participated in from these adolescents, unfortunately, many adolescents are not meeting the healthy fitness zones that are required by the state. So when testing happens, there's only about a quarter of adolescents that are passing those healthy fitness zones or meeting those healthy fitness zones. So it's recommended that on a daily basis that children and adolescents are getting 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity and then 2 hours recommended for sedentary behavior. And the researchers are calculating out educational purposes. So they're not including homework-based or educational-based assignments for that screen time. This is recreational-based only. However, students are actually exceeding those 2 hours on a daily basis during the weekday. However, on weekends, they are at the point of doubling and even tripling that amount of time spent on sedentary behaviors, specifically screen time. It also comes to after school activities. Where is the child going after school? Are parents picking them up? Are they going to a friend's house? Are they going to a babysitter's house? Are they going into an after-school program? Are they in after-school sports? We come to find out that children that are going to a family care child home, 90% of those homes, the child is not directly related to the provider. And it's very rare where the provider and the child is a 1-to-1 ratio. Normally, it's a wide range of children to 1 to 2, maybe even 3 providers. However, the ranges of the children in these facilities can go anywhere from infant toddler to preteen teen, and then of course there's every age in between. And with that, unfortunately, these care homes are not providing the amount of physical activity to the kids that they need, in addition to what they're supposedly getting at school. However, they are again exceeding the time that they are spending on screen-based activities, whether it's because it's easier to keep track of students where they're at, of the people that they are providing care for, versus trying to think of activities that engage, encourage, and motivate them to be physically active. It can be to the point where it won't meet every age group that they are caring for. So what could be entertaining to a toddler or a young child would not gauge the same attention or interest to a preteen or teen person at that facility. With that, I then took it a little bit further, and for my topic, I did specifically screen time activities and adolescent children between the ages of 10 and 13. So once my research was approved by my faculty advisor and the IRB, I then took my research idea, to the principal at the middle school. I met with her, introduced my research study. I gave her the information in regards to the study, a copy of the minor consent form, along with the exact questions that the students that would be participating in this research would be answering. So if she had any questions or concerns, she was then able to bring that up to me at that time and could have made any necessary changes that needed to be made. So once she did approve my research, I was then able to hand out hard copies of the information, the minor consent form and minor consent forms, to each student in their actual physical education class. So all students at the school, 613 of them, received a copy of the study that was going to take place on campus, and the minor consent form that the parent would sign, whether they're agreeing to allow their student to participate or declining to let them participate. However, we only received 191 yes responses, and a majority, however, never responded or turned in the consent form. So once I got all of the consent forms turned in with yeses, a Google form, the screen time and physical activity survey, was then sent to them via Google Classroom to their physical education assignments. And every student at the school has access to their physical education classroom, Google Classroom. So once they were able to access that, they had 1 week to complete the survey. The survey consisted of 12 multiple choice questions and then 8 additional statements where they responded on a 1 to 5 point Likert scale. This was a quantitative method that was used, again, using Google Forms sent through to their Google Classroom. And then once the results were in after the week, the Google form was then closed, and all results were then transcribed in Excel for further analysis. When analyzing the results that came in, I noticed that there was a discrepancy with actual physical activity versus what's recommended. So there was a high percentage, over 70% of students, that did participate in a physical activity outside of school hours. The remaining 25 to 30% only received physical activity during their physical education classes. So there are physical there are after school physical activity programs out there. It's just whether or not that the other 20 to 25% were actually participating in. When it came to actual sedentary time versus what was recommended, so the recommended time is 2 hours. However, the actual time that these students that participated in the survey were getting was well over 2 hours. A majority were actually spending more than 3 or more hours on screen time, specifically sedentary behavior. And we have to look at, again, the accessibility. So the accessibility of having a screen-based technology at home was 99.5%. So everyone that participated in this survey, but one person had access to some type of screen-based technology. So looking further into the time spent on screen-based activities and breaking it down on weekend versus weekday, the weekday students had very slightly less screen time activity, and that is due to school structure. Because students are in classrooms and they're at school during nutrition and lunch, they don't have access to those screen-based activities because on this campus, there's no cell phones allowed during school hours. Yes, they're allowed to bring them. However, they're not allowed to use them until they are exiting school grounds. So the school structure is able to limit their use of that technology. However, on weekends, when there is no school structure, that's when home life kind of takes into account what is the parent or guardian allowing them to access. Are they giving them a free-for-all and just being able to use screen-based activities for the entire 48 hours that the weekend ranges from? Do they still have a bedtime? Do they still need to wake up at a certain time? So that's when it comes to spending even more time. That's when I saw the doubling or even tripling of time spent on screen-based activities. And again, that's screen-based specifically, not even sedentary put together. So then when that result of home life and even the participation in after-school sports, it comes with the parent and child intentions. So the parent intentions are there with over 70% of students participating in after-school activities, physical activities. The parent sees the importance of having a healthy, active lifestyle. However, one of the things that I noticed in the survey was that over 50% of children, of the participants in this study, stated that they either disagreed or strongly disagreed or felt neutral on the statement of them actually loving to be physically active. So the parent intentions are there for their child to have a healthy lifestyle or a healthy active lifestyle. However, the child's intention's not there. So where's the gap? That was the big thing, is because there is a huge gap. If 70% or over 70% of the participants are participating in after-school activity, they are more than likely getting the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity daily. However, they were not enjoying it. So one of the researchers came across school structure. They're meeting, they were either meeting or very close to meeting those recommended physical activity hours and even the sedentary behavior times on that during the weekday or during the school structure. We have to take into account that grades K through 5 teachers, there's a lot on their plate. They only have a physical education teacher come to their school because they're normally traveling physical education teachers for the elementary school level once a week. And with that, they are only getting anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour of instructional physical education time. The other time that they're getting when there's no physical education teacher on campus, they're relying on recess, and also they're relying on their daily teacher to set time outside of their schedule to then take their children out for additional instructional PE time, not just free play. However, many teachers are doing going the free play route just because it's easier and they are able to expend that energy. However, with middle school and high school physical education, it's a requirement. They have one period set aside for physical education. So that's when it comes to the point of, are the students actually participating? They can dress out, they cannot dress. Are they coming out? Are they just standing there? What are they physically doing? They can be physically present, but not physically participating. High school too, it's only required to take 2 years of physical education in the high school level in order to graduate. High school sports are even becoming a little bit more obsolete because club sports are becoming more popular, and that's the route that most parents are taking their children for more specific training. So another thing is parent intentions versus parent involvement. They say that if a parent has positive intentions towards their child will then also have positive intentions. Unfortunately, my research study contradicted that. Even though over 70% of students were there doing after-school physical activity, they did not enjoy it. So where's the parent involvement? Are the parents being involved in being physically active with their child? Are they just dropping off and picking up for practices? Are they there, but are they on their cell phone? Are they on their tablet? It's one of those things to take in consideration on the difference between having the intention of doing something and being involved. So for recommendations on parent involvement, be physically there, be physically involved with their student. Limit the screen-based activity. Do not allow it to be a free-for-all. Don't allow it to be a gateway to give you more adult time or you more of your self-time. Screen-based activities versus physical activities, there's ways to incorporate. There's certain applications that are coming out, new technology that's coming out that can actually show the importance of physical activity and being able to incorporate those screen-based activities in physical activities. School structure, teachers have to remember their time management. Transitioning, especially for physical education teachers, transitioning from one activity to another, from the locker room to outside, from outside into the locker room. For future research, I feel that, for parents to get more aware of what's going on, to have both hard copy and digital copies readily available to them. Because we're in such a high technology based society, having digital everything helps parents keep more up to date on things. Allowing for more question specificity, having more specific questions can relate to a more closed results, not so gray area. Instead of a one-time check-in with a survey, having maybe a pre and a post and having them be aware of what they're doing, seeing if any changes happen within a certain amount of time and do a post survey. And then opening up to a larger sample size, not just focusing on one school, but focusing maybe on a district or focusing on different areas within the same grade. That is my capstone research that I did. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I can't wait to hear your questions that have been brought up as you're going through my presentation. I hope everyone has a great rest of week 8.